Sidaway Bridge, a symbol of the best and worst of Cleveland and of people. What follows are authentic snapshots of what was, what could have been, and what is happening. It is because we are still in the city and because we are keeping it real.
I have recently thought through my personal journey, and I had a moment in my life when I was very young, and I had the opportunity to help someone, and I didn't do it, mostly because I was just too immature to be able to figure it out. But that really led me to be dedicated to taking care of people.
When I'm older, I want to be a lawyer when I grow up.
No kidding.
And a nurse.
All right, there you go. Say bye.
Bye.
On so many levels, I could think about the tensions that bridges hold, right? The bridge hold tensions, right, connecting, depending on the design. They're really managing the tension of the weight of the bridge.
Wow.
Very impressive, Mr. Wyatt.
Now, I worked at Empire Plow, but every morning I would get up to go to work, and I would come out of I lived at 3421 East 119th Street.
About what year was this?
This is 1944, I would say. But I would ride the streetcar to Sidaway, get off the streetcar, cross the street, and go across the bridge.
So the Sidaway Bridge, as we know it now, was built in 1929 and connected up the Kinsman neighborhood to the north with what was referred to as the Yakovo neighborhood to the south. Both neighborhoods at the time on either end of the bridge were mainly Polish with some Czech and some other Eastern and Central European residents. The bridge was actually quite notable because it was the longest pedestrian bridge in Northeast Ohio, and I think in the entire state of Ohio. On the Slavic village side of the bridge was the old St. Hyacinth Catholic Church. Elizabeth Baptist Church originated, I believe, in the Kinsman neighborhood, and they had been in place for several decades. And when the Opportunity Corridor was planned, it was going to go right at the doorstep of Elizabeth Baptist Church. And so the congregation was looking for a new place, and they purchased what was St. Hyacinth Catholic Church.
If folks don't know about the history of Cleveland's neighborhoods, as time progressed, the Kinsman neighborhood on the north side of the bridge became more and more African American, And the Slavic Village neighborhood on the south side of the bridge was historically Eastern European white folks. And so as racial tensions grew, the bridge was seen as a way that Black people were entering into white spaces, quote unquote.
I got my eviction notice and I walked the streets for a while, and I wound up living in an abandoned building on Imperial, which was my route. Subsequently, I wound up working at a roofing company out in, because it was only I and another Black guy there. I sit on a job where the head guy attacked the other Black guy with a nail gun right in front of me. And I knew that my days were numbered. I knew they were numbered. One of the things we did as small children was to congregate on the corner of 71st, or not 71st, and Sidaway and Kinsman, where the bridge was, the Sidaway Bridge. The young white children who lived on the other side of the bridge, the south side, we would taunt each other and antagonize each other, calling each other names and this kid stuff, which was part of the environment of growing up in Cleveland in that particular area at that time. And it was child stuff, but we didn't realize how deeply rooted our feelings were toward the other race. We didn't know because we were children. And the environment we were in produced our thinking. So what I do for a living is enjoyable, not just putting food on my table, but putting food on the table of a multitude of young Black people. But most of the men that contact me with the desperation in their voices look like me.
The bridge was burned, not burned to the point of not being able to be used, but it was badly damaged. And instead of the city repairing the bridge, they decided to close it, and the bridge was closed for over 50 years. The city of Cleveland and Cleveland Public Schools had colluded in school segregation and used this bridge as an example of that collusion.
Good afternoon. My name is Peter Witt. I am Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at the St. Luke's Foundation. Yeah, I grew up in Garden Valley between, I would say, actually since I was born, 69 through about 83. There was always this level of respect for your elders. There was always a level of respect for the women in the community. It was not necessarily a community which was looking at people at that era and doing anything that would kind of not be respectful to any elder. Because what would happen at that time is somebody's aunt, uncle, whatever will call that parent or that guardian and say, hey, such and such is doing X, Y, and Z. And that person would be in trouble. So again, these are my primary years. I think having those experiences was like super powerful for me. It gave me fellowship, camaraderie, a sense of identity. I grew up in Garden Valley. This is who I am. That's something that I carry with me to this day. I don't walk around saying anything less in terms of who I am because that shaped my principles, character, and moral values.
I used to eat lunch across the street from the shop. And they would have different Polish meals, soups and different types of food that was primarily prepared for Polish-speaking people. And I learned to speak some Polish.
Well, food is medicine, so that's the benefit of having fresh crops and food available to the community. You know, just being a part of nature in the city can bring about peace and calmness, reduce stress, create or increase mindfulness. All those are tools that can be used to lead to better health outcomes. So there's so many benefits for that. But food is medicine.
Such a great question. Food apartheid is, first of all, a better way of explaining food deserts. You know, food deserts have a limited scope into what it covers, where food apartheid really deals with the food access or the lack of food access and it being a systemic issue that comes with it. Like when we talk about grocery stores that come into our communities based on the socioeconomical status of its residents. So what we're dealing with is we don't all have access to good, healthy food or produce where some other cities or neighborhoods have that. Using the farm-to-table moment to learn about food as medicine is essential for all of us, no matter what your preferences are, because you pay now or you pay later.
So the Forgotten Triangle was called the Forgotten Triangle because it had the largest concentration of vacant land within those boundaries in the city of Cleveland. And a lot of the vacancy was created through disinvestment, but there was a catalytic event that happened in the triangle that really catapulted the disinvestment, and there was a fire. And they couldn't get the fire out because the poor infrastructure. And so that house burned, and another house burned, and another house burned, and suddenly an entire city block and a half was wiped out with one fire overnight. And because of insurance redlining, a lot of those homeowners didn't have property insurance because they wouldn't issue policies in inner city neighborhoods that have been redlined for various reasons. So they couldn't rebuild. So you suddenly had an entire generation of homeowners and houses wiped out with one fire, and it was never rebuilt. Urban Bill Carr and our partners have turned that space into an urban agriculture innovation zone where we have these acres and acres of vacant land in the heart of an otherwise high density urban area, and we're able to be innovative around agricultural experiences. So our partners at Ridall now use the space to grow vegetables. They use all of these innovative tools. So they have a space where they use aquaponics. So they're actually farming fish, and the fish are in the tank, and the nutrients from the fish feed the vegetables that are on top. and the nutrients from the vegetables feed the fish, and it's a little circle of life, all happening right there on 81st, just north of Kinsman.
If you look in my world, which is medical education, we are really starting to focus on climate change and the health effects and trying to educate our students. So we have incorporated into our medical school curriculum components of climate change and the health effects so that all of our students now are exposed and learning about that, so they can really take that to the bedside or into the clinic or the hospital when they're working with patients and be much more aware of this. You know, beyond that, we think there's great opportunities as a school to not only teach students in the classroom about this, which we're doing, but get them out into the community and really look for ways to make a difference. And that, you know, that's, I think we're just at the beginning of that, but a lot of exciting work in that regard.
The people love each other, and over here, the people love the people over here, and over here, the people love the people over here. And it's like, so, like, they share the same bridge and they respect each other. My name is Nzinga, the Queen of Africa, beautiful and courageous.
This is a big puzzle, how to get things done to make this part of the world better. And the other thing is being creative, and the solutions that are not boilerplate or cookie cutter solutions to big problems like this.
What do I think about the bridge being a metaphor for racial tension or racial harmony? And I think it's not really even a metaphor. It's directly on the nose. I think you have two sides separated by the span of the bridge, one predominantly African American, one predominantly white or Caucasian, and the bridge being burned on one side so these two sides would not commingle. I mean, there's nothing that you have to imagine too far to really understand what that really means. It's the removal of connection, both physically and I guess you could say metaphorically.
You know, when we're talking about relationships and we're talking about building bridges and developing relationships with not only our patients but also with each other, that we are more the same than we are different, and that everyone has a story. And part of developing relationships is really trying to get to what is your story, right? And being open to other people as to what my story is, right? So again, making sure that it is something that is bi-directional. And I think that makes things a little bit easier for people as we're developing these relationships.
I have a relationship with the bridge because I think that, like, I know it's 36 feet down, but I want to see what it feels like to go on the bridge, because where do it take you to?
As it represents a certain amount of poetry that could be both triumph for many people and disaster for others, depending on what era that you saw them in.